Greetings. February 4th. March. March 4th, 2026. St. Lou is Miss Urea. Hail to her name, Miss Urea. Maria present with us, the lovely lady, the one and only dancer, best dancer ever. Most lovely, beautiful. I know she don't want me wasting time saying this, but truly. And we'll begin tonight. And just remember, we love you. And remember, recover, return. Because it's basically the activation of the simulated blood memory that saved me and can save you in general. A very non-individualized general principle for our people, right? And we'll begin with another anti-Bible study. I just want you, as a friend, individual to individual, to listen to this in the context that we're supposed to believe, with a gun to our head, with a sword to our neck, that this is the universal Catholic God. And I know everyone younger, when I say Catholic, you hear pedophile rightly. It's funny, I just realized I've been talking about the dream of, what I called Jesus back in 2000, the year 2000. But I would later, because he never said who he was, I would later begin to call him after I realized there was no historical Jesus like your Bible. There was not. If there was, he's the biggest asshole that ever existed. That means that he used to heal people all the time, do all kinds of miracles, but now he does nothing because, I don't know, some crazy reason because you're fucked up. But according to this book, he died and renewed everything and blah, blah, blah. Right? He died to forgive the perpetrators and fuck the victim. All right, we're going to, just real quick, we're going to go back and forth. We're going to first sort of juxtapose this. The book, The Ultimate Flower by Miguel Serrano. And we are going to we're going to start this before we go to the anti-Bible study. The circle, the return, the repeating, right? He says here, as a child, I was brought up in the country. We lived in the hills, in sight of a snow-capped peak of the Andes. Alongside of the house was a garden with dovecotes and fountains. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that word. And there I used to play by the hour. My first friends were the flowers and plants that grew in the garden. One day I saw a hand emerge from the bell of a flower and wave to me, urging me to come near. To my childish eyes, it seemed perfectly natural that a hand should come out of a flower, and I therefore went over to it. My only worry was that I was not able to enter it as it seemed to want me to. I simply could not fit. Shortly afterwards, the flower wilted, and its leaves and petals fell to the ground. I gathered them up in hopes of bringing them back to life, but of course was not able to do so. Then I thought of making a paper flower, and I spent many days cutting one out and painting it with bright colors. Once it was finished, I took it out to the garden and I planted it where the other flower had been. My hope was that if the flower was well enough made, the hand would reappear. But when it did not come back, I realized that my flower could not compare to those of the garden which had been made by. At the moment, I stopped being a child. Never afterwards was I able to speak freely with the flowers and plants of the garden. Without realizing it, I entered into a competition with God and so compromised my innocent relationship with nature. The trial. For days, I sat alone in the room, contemplating the flower and comparing it to those I had known in the garden of my childhood and in the valley of the flowers. The more I studied it, the more I realized that there was no basis for comparison at all. At length, there was a knock at the door. I went to see who it was, strongly conscious that the visitor had been there for some time. He looked like a bill collector, but then I noticed that his feet were reversed and that his toes pointed backwards. And I asked him his name, and he handed me a number on a calling card, each one bearing a different name. These are the words I read on the cards: abominable snowman, spectrum of umbrella, Bunchi. The visitor then spoke. I am the Secretary General of the party, and it is my duty to call you to order and bring you back to reality. From what party? I asked. I don't belong to any party. So much the worse, he replied. You are just the last romantic. You are just a last romantic. You are living a life of pure fantasy. Therefore, I can tell you that the guilt you feel is nothing more than a realization that you have lived on the margin of existence and that you are wholly mistaken in your fantasy. That's not true, I answered. That's not true at all. No one will take my flower away from me. It's mine. I made it. I made it. The visitor burst out laughing. You see, you shout like a little boy. That's what you are. You're nothing but a child. I pulled myself together and spoke calmly. What you say has not convinced me, I said. Then he became more severe. Come with me. Come with me, he ordered. I obeyed, for I knew that I would have to follow through to the end. There was no escape, so we went down the stairs and out to the street. And now you must take me to see those beautiful houses which you claim to have discovered in our city. Where are they? I nodded, and we walked along the Vergara Street and the Alameda, and along, I know I'm pronouncing these wrong, sorry, Ahumada, Alameda and Ahumada. And we also investigated the Church of San Francisco. Nowhere did we find the Renaissance houses, the palace, or the tower. And at each frustration, my companion sarcastically nodded his head. You see, he said, all this is nothing but a fantasy, mere dreams. Reality is quite another matter, even though you have never wanted to accept it. Nevertheless, it exists, and now you must recognize it. Santiago is poor and modest. It is a simple city, and we who live here must work in it and accept it for what it is. And as for your circle, and as for your master, where are they now? Where are they? And what about your friend, Jason? Have you considered what he really was? A dreamer who was unable to pass beyond adolescence and who was murdered. And what about your queen, your Papin, your Aluin? You were carried away by the feverish dreams produced by a poor consumptive girl. Don't you know that these hallucinations are merely the product of the coccobacillus bacteria? Shut up, I shouted. If you don't be quiet, you'll turn me into a real murderer. Shut up. This outburst did not affect him. Rather, in a lower, more confidential voice, he went on, for something which does not even exist. You have sacrificed everything, your own life, your own happiness. None of these things have any real value. You have abandoned all for something which you call your flower. And so now you had better follow me, and I will show you someone who anticipated all of the madmen, the crazies of this world, including you. Together, we walked along side by side, he with his twisted feet, through many streets, many country districts, which I recognized. We crossed over canals and lakes and traveled through mountain districts until we finally arrived at a primitive town surrounded by a stockade. I recognized it immediately. It was Porto Hombre, Hombre, the ancient Ciudad del Rey Felipe, which had been established by Pedro Sarmiento de Gamboa. Pedro Gamboa. We walked into a small central square, and I thought of Sarmiento's betrayal of his followers, and of the terrible doubt and despair that they must have felt when we then stopped before the tree of justice, and there I saw a naked figure hanging from the tree. Move, my companion said. Look, move closer. Move closer. My companion said, look at the face of the hanging man. It was nighttime, and it was difficult to see clearly. The position of the figure was familiar and symbolic, but it was not, but, but it was impossible to identify him precisely as one of Sarmiento's deserted companions. Okay, you hear him? The position of the figure was familiar, but it was impossible to identify him precisely as one of Sarmiento's deserted companions, or as some other of greater significance. But just then, in the midst of these thoughts, he opened his mouth and hurled forth a great shout. Pedro, Pedro, why have you forsaken me? And we'll be right back with our anti-Bible study. Okay, let us continue our anti-Bible study. Tonight's passage from the lie able. The Bible makes the lie able. And, it would all be fine. There's lots of books, lots of myths, but it's the enforcement of this God at the point right now, today, in America, of an economic gun. On a still very tangible level, the true white privilege is white Christian privilege. It always has been, and white people have always been, certain sectors of white people have always been completely persecuted, rejected by their own people. And the reality today, see, in Europe, within like one little area, each culture considered itself a race. So within this German culture, they were like, this religion has made their religion their race. This is they did it on purpose. It's an act of magic. Your religion is not your race. Define the terms religion, define the terms race, and it's over. You're a deceiver, right? And this is the God that they learned it from, okay? This is from Ezekiel 20, verse, I guess we could start at verse 23. Also, I swore to them, Israel, in the wilderness, that I would scatter them among the nations and disperse them among the lands, because they had not observed my ordinances, but had rejected my statutes and profaned my Sabbaths, and their eyes were on the idols of their ancestors. Listen to this quote from God. I gave them evil statutes and ordinances by which they could not live by. What? I also gave them evil statutes and ordinances, evil, not good. Literally translated the opposite of good. Listen to this. What did he give them that wasn't good? statutes, laws, and ordinances, specific laws, which they could not possibly live by. Why? Because the laws were human sacrifice. So, of course, you couldn't live by them because the laws were evil, telling you, listen to this. How were they supposed to know? God says, this is verse 25. It's in quotes from Yahweh. I gave them statutes which were not good, evil ordinances by which they could not live by. So he actually told them things that he knew they wouldn't want to do, like you must sacrifice your firstborn. Is that real? Somewhere I already did a anti-Bible study on the ordinance statutes that Yahweh himself is talking about right here. He gave them to Moses, who Jesus keeps saying is good. Moses said this, I came in his name, blah, blah, blah. This whole thing is a poison, rotten trick. It's a cycle. It's a psyop. The Bible is a psychological operation on Europe, mainly, starting in 326 AD with your Saint Nick. Ho, ho, ho. Right? Ho, ho, ho. If you don't believe this, we kill you. To everyone who speaks well of it, who dares goes in a church, and these people, like Julian the Apostate said, these people walk by the history of our ancestors, the things that represent them. They hiss and spit, he said, and start drawing their signs of the cross because they despise our history and our ancestors that much that they recoil like the fucking exorcist. Yeah. Everything is so reversed. You know why people believe in demons? The pedophile church. The pedophile church, called the Catholic Church, literally made it their fan fiction to first create a fictional being. Aliens, does this sound familiar? A fictional being called a demon. They have demonology of these fictional, it's like Dungeons and Dragons, but they take it literal. And what a perfect problem, reaction, solution, scam, right? We create the demon that doesn't exist, who is really the magician who projects himself out in different personalities. And he's like, look, they think I'm 20 different fucking demons, right? And what's very interesting, and we'll switch to our rune reading here. But what's very interesting, let you research and think about this. What I've been saying about our bodies on Venus and everything about us from Venus is exactly how they describe angels and demons. The exact Venusian body, no sex organs, no food, doesn't have to eat, drink, blah, blah, blah. This is all what they say about angels and demons. Because they're experts at drawing out the unconscious reality. It's not even so much truth. You came from a reality right before you were born here. With these exact, you were, according to their definition, you and I were angels and demons to them before we came here. They're reverse engineering the truth and switching the polarity. They're switching the polarity. They're saying, hey, it's not just energy. It's an actual being that the energy is coming out of. And check this out. He's all of he is all of reality, including all the evil. And you know what? You better fear him. Because check this out. This is how much of a fucking dick he is. I gave them, I'm God. How the fuck would they know? They trust me. Listen to this. Yeah, they're fucking up because who's perfect? With your 666 rules. Is that really how many there are in the Bible? Is there really, Joseph, 666 laws in the Bible? There sure is. Why? Because Aleister Crowley, the Beast, edited your Walmart Bible, your new Bible, your better than King Jamesy, and your King James. How do you trust someone who says, trust me, and then later says, you know what? I purposely gave you laws to obey that were evil. There's one thing, people, he's talking about, one thing only. It's what we're seeing right now in Iran. It's what we've seen all over the world through the Thalemite British Israelism process, church, hippie movement, synthetic drugs, the Christianity in its full force and economic. The people are watching in the future. It's March 4th, 2026. The only people in America that support slaughtering Iranian Muslims who did absolutely nothing to us are Christians. And what did I just read to you? I have given you evil laws to obey. Little break, and I'll be back with the Rune. The Rune. Okay. And the Rune tonight is the very central pillar, the central tower, the tower I was talking about. Isis. One on. The word on. Just think. Turn on. Opposite of off. One is all coming from this archetypal, symbolic, magical concept, symbol, poetry of the mother. For me, it's Maria. For people all over the world, and right down to each individual person, it has to be to you, or it's not real. You must say, she is or he is to me. And Maria said, this is the completion, fulfillment of the myth. The myth might be based on real people, but the author's intent is magic, a story that comes true in your life. So that one day when you meet him, you can say, I couldn't believe it. When I read your book, I felt like it was my life story. I had my Princess Papin. I had my Aluin, right? And so the Isis rune the rune of ice, the frozen rune. Here's what it says: master yourself and thereby control the powers of your enemy. Master yourself and thereby control the powers of your enemy. Ragnarok from Adolf Hitler, the ultimate avatar, Miguel Serrano, page 320. Ragnarok. Ragnarok was the twilight of the Asir gods. The Norn Skuld sounded the horn of destiny in the Waldheim of Frigg, right? The forest in the garden of Induna. Okay? Its melancholy echo went resounding among the trunks of the patriarchal oaks, and from the ash trees to reach the ancient sky, shortly before their collapse. O gods, this is the end of Asgard, so filled with brilliant castles, golden apples, friendly animals who spoke with heroes, and whose fruits of yesteryear. The sound of the terrible horn led to consternation in Asgard because the Divyas, the gods, remember the eternal return and know everything will fucking eventually repeat as a destiny impossible to escape, to rock the circle. A circle closes. A melancholy dimming of the light signals the entrance of a sadhya, followed by a sadhyanansa. The divine know they are going to die without dying. The divine know they're going to die without dying. They will fall into dream among the polar glaciers. Ravens will tend them, devour them like the Parsi towers of silence. Towers of silence, like in the castle of silence. Only the heroes converted into wolves will remain watching and waiting. The Hyperborean Divyas have died, disappeared, to be renewed among subterranean crevices of fire. From there they shall return rejuvenated like the phoenix. But the gods have died, have entered a vast dream. The Fuhrer has gone away, the Fuhrer sleeps. Only the heroes continue fighting among the shadows of the night until they too must depart. Will they be able to support the horrible shadows of Sadhya and Ansa? Sorry. The shadows? It is the time of great dissolution. Only the spouse. All others are dead. Hari, Yama, Kubra, and even the awakened eye of Indra closes. So say the Tantras, all except she, who has only changed the rhythm of her dance. Frigg, Birka, the Illuminous have been transformed by the demiurge into Black Kali, the destroyer. Come on, Kali. Even the divine, the Hyperborean gods who have entered into combat within the reoccurring universe of the One, Jehovah, the Lord of Darkness, even they have fallen prisoners in the eternal return, having to accept the karmic cyclic law. The first to die will be sweet Baldur. Beside his funeral pyre, Wotan draws near to say farewell. He whispers a few words in his ear, which no one will ever know. It is the great mystery, perhaps a rune, that of death and the promise of resurrection. Then the Fenrir wolf devours everything, even Wotan, and the age of the wolf enters that of heavy iron. The Kali Yuga, the darkest, the dance of Kali, where a lone sun scarcely seems to cross through those dense layers of obscurity until everything is destroyed. The music heard amid the twilight of the gods is without doubt that of Wagner. He sensed it in the memory of the blood. Is Isis, master yourself, and thereby control the powers of your enemy. Master yourself, and thereby control the powers of your enemy. And this little note, I believe, is important. Tower of Silence is Zoroastrian architecture, a stone tower on top of a hill consisting of concentric blocks surrounding a central pit. Dead bodies are arranged into concentric rings in the open, and birds of prey devour the bodies until nothing is left but white bones. You know, we read before about Jesus killing everybody in the whole world and feeding them. I mean, this is literally a like magic way of desecrating everything our ancestors. The Bible fucking sucks. It's coded with insults to our ancestry and to our culture and to our way. And they literally put to death everyone that wouldn't comply until the world, it took hundreds of, literally thousands of years for the world to have a consensus to say, you're fucked up. You cannot burn women to death because you say they're bad. We literally had that up until the 17th century, openly, proud of it. And you turn on YouTube or anything, and it's nothing but Christians, going blah, blah, blah. And sometimes they're doing good work exposing evil, and they turn right around and say, but I do worship the same God as Jeffrey Epstein, Yahweh. And if you're this foolish and you still don't know, your Dungeons and Dragons myth tells you to your face. Jesus says to your face, when you see me, you see Yahweh. I am Yahweh. I'm healing my brothers and sisters, my own race, and that's all and only came from the house of Israel. And I'm going to murder your children, every last one of them, and throw them into a lake of fucking fire. And listen to this. The Tower of Silence. The remains of the dead are left bleaching on the upper circular decks for a year, the bones. And then they are swept into the underlining ossuary pit, where they are filtered with sand and coal. Then the disintegrated bones are washed away into the ocean. I was like, wow, I fucking like that. I wish our people, and don't forget Zoroastrians are still present in Iran today. But I think that's a beautiful way to return your physical body back to nature through the Tower of Silence, in a process to literally return you back to the water. And listen, may the sun, the moon, the stars, the energy, may it come concentrated from Maria and I to you as amor, love without death. We'll be right back with Mother's Session.
A woman stands at the edge of the known, veiled in whispers where mysteries are sown. With eyes like stars in the shadow of night, she moves through the dark, through hinge light. A dancer of visions, a keeper of keys, reading the language of cosmic seas. Her curls fall long like spirals of fate as she bends through dimensions and alters the state. They call her a prophet, a witch and a muse, that she drifted through realms that no one could choose. A voice in the void, soft as a sigh, hearing secrets in stardust beneath the sky. The universe. Her journals they speak in code and in verse of beings that cross the universe. The world thought her lost, but she slipped through the seams into spaces uncharted, real life dreams. Some see a legend, others a ghost, a figure who haunts where the unknown goes. A whisperer, a wanderer, the chains don't grow. In the darkness she's found, and in light unknown.